Welcome to the future of Cheltenham. Today, we're exploring the Cavendish Exchange, a visionary proposal to transform the town's civic heart. What is Cavendish Exchange?
It is about people. Cavendish Exchange, it's really about bringing a major part of Cheltenham back to life. Cavendish House is in one of the most important locations in the town centre, and for generations it was part of everyday life in here. Today, that connections have been largely lost. The idea behind the project is quite simple. How could this building reconnect with the town and the people around it? It is about opening the site back up, creating a new connection through the town centre and turning a disconnected building into something that once again plays a meaningful role in Cheltenham's life. At its heart, the project asks for a simple question. What could happen if this building become a part of Cheltenham's everyday lives again?
How did this project come about?
The project began as a university brief at the end of my second year as a part of a large-scale design project. But very quickly, it stopped feeling like an academic exercise. Having worked and design for many years, I'm using to look for beyond buildings and thinking about how places affect people's everyday lives. The more I research Cavendish House, the more I realize it represents something much bigger than itself. It becomes less about completing assessment and more about exploring a genuine opportunity for the town. I found myself asking questions that went far beyond the brief. Why has such an important site remained underused for so long? What role could it play if it reconnects with the town? And what does Cheltenham deserve from a location like this? Those questions stay with me through the project and ultimately shape the direction it took.
What did you see that made you care so much?
What struck me most was the contrast. We have this beautiful Regency town with incredible strong identity, full of character, active, and the civic pride. Every day people walk past it, they look at, they move around it, but they don't experience it. It feels like a missed opportunity, not because the building lacks value, but because its potential remains unrealized. When I stood in front of it and I observed how the people move around the town, I couldn't stop and imagine what could this space become if it is opened back up once again to the public. Once that idea was in my head, that it became impossible to ignore it.
Walk us through the key decisions you made.
The decision process began by listen rather than design. Before making any proposal, I spent time studying its history of the site, the surrounding buildings, and the way people move through this part of Cheltenham. One thing that stood out immediately was the importance of the promenade. The word itself means to walk with pleasure, and historically, its part of Cheltenham was designed around that idea. The original architecture encouraged people to slow down, observe, and enjoy the town around them. Over the time, much of that relationship was lost. So the first decision was to restore a sense of a civic presence to the promenade, not by recreating the past, but by reintroducing the elegance, detail, and the visual interest that once made this part of Cheltenham special. The second decision was movement. Most people walk around the site. I want people to move through it. The new passage connects the promenade and the Regency Street, transforming the building from a barrier into part of the journey. It extends the experience of the promenade itself, encouraging curiosity and discovery. As people move through the space, the architecture transitioned from Cheltenham's Regency heritage into a contemporary language of steel and glass. The intention was never to imitate history, but to create a respectful dialogue between old and new. That thinking also shaped the new public square. More than simply creating open space, it provided a place for people to gather, pause, and enjoy the town center. It also revealed one of the areas overlooked and assessed, the old courthouse. The standalone pavilion is carefully positioned to frame view through it, using contemporary architecture to draw attention to heritage that already exists rather than compete with it. Only once those urban decisions were established, I began thinking about the program. The mix of cultural, commercial, office and residential use was designed to create activity through the day while encouraging the long-term viability of the site. Maybe as exhibition space or visitor information point that celebrates Cheltenham culture and heritage. The food hall creates a social destination. Office support a daytime activity, while residential accommodations provide a permanent community and the long-term stewardship of the site. Ultimately, every decision comes back to the same question: what does Cheltenham need from this site? The architecture becomes the answer to that question, not the start point.
Cheltenham has a very specific identity. How did that shape your vision?
Cheltenham's identity shaped this project from the very beginning. What makes Cheltenham special isn't just about architecture, it is the vibe of the town, the culture, the history, the people, and the way the people use it to enjoy the city center. The Regency architecture is a huge part of the story, and I felt that it was important that any proposal respect what makes this town unique. At the same time, Cheltenham has never stood still. The town has continued to evolve, and Cavendish House itself has changed many times through its history. For me, the challenge wasn't preserve the past or create something completely new. It was find a way for the site to continue its story while remain true to the character of the town around it. Ultimately, I wanted the proposal to feel as a thought. It belongs in Cheltenham and nowhere else.
When did this stop feeling like a university project?
I think there were actually two moments. The first happened during the design process itself, when I realized I was spending far more time in researching the site, its history, and its role in Cheltenham than the brief required. At that point, it stopped being about completing assessment and became something I genuinely care about. The second moment came when the conversation moved beyond university. Seeing people with a real knowledge of Cheltenham engage with the proposal changed the way I look at it. When the Cheltenham Civic Society took the time to review the drawings, discuss the ideas, and consider the wide implication for the town, it was incredibly encouraging. That was probably the moment I realized this had become part of a real conversation about a real place.
This proposal started a real conversation in Cheltenham. What has that been like?
What has been most encouraging is seeing how much people care. What people may have different views of what the future of Cavendish House should be, but the conversation has shown something much bigger. How deeply people care about Cheltenham and its identity. For me, that's been one of the most positive outcomes of the project. Cheltenham has a remarkable architecture and cultural legacy, and any vision for the future needs to respect that while recognize the towns must continue to evolve. What I have been taken away from that discussion is that people want a future that honors Cheltenham's character while making the town center more active, connected, and relevant for future generations. So that's a conversation worth having.
This is still a proposal. What do you hope happens next?
Is ultimately not up to me alone. What I hope happens next is that the conversation continues. Opportunities like this are rare. There are very few moments when a town has the chance to rethink such an important site at the heart of the center. However the future of Cavendish House may be, I hope it is approached with ambitions, care, and a long-term vision for Cheltenham. Because places like this help shape how people experience the town for generations. And I think Cheltenham deserves the very best future we can imagine for it.